Ladies and gentlemen and all variations thereupon, I'm Bridget Mitchell and welcome to my YouTube channel. For today's project, I'm going to be making a throne, but a throne comprised entirely out of cardboard, which sounds a little bit insane. But I've got a lot of cardboard left over, as I keep saying, so I want to create a project with it that I don't think anyone else has done before. There's lots of projects on YouTube of people creating shelving and other sorts of boxes, but I don't think anyone's actually tried to create a throne before. And my intention with this project is not just to create a throne, just a chair made out of cardboard. I want to make a dragon throne. This project is going to be comprised over several videos because I know this is going to be a massive project. So this is going to be the first part of creating the actual cardboard throne itself, the structure of it. So it's basically just going to be a throne shaped chair. The next part of the project is going to be creating what actually makes it a dragon throne. I'm going to create 2 dragon skulls made again entirely out of cardboard, and I'm going to have them, if all goes according to plan, mounted to the arms of the throne. And finally, for a third part of the project, I'm going to move away from the cardboard at that point, because cardboard, as good a material as it is not necessarily the most comfy to sit on. So I'm going to need to create some sort of seat cushion or something, and that I'm hoping to make out of leather work. Seat cushion and cushion back to the throne, and hopefully try and make it look like it's made from dragon hide. So that's the idea for the project. So let's just jump straight into it and try and create the dragon throne purely from cardboard. With this I need to be quite careful, because while I only need 2 main structural parts of this size, I don't have many pieces of cardboard that are large enough to put this from. I have one other box of this size, or of a sufficient size that I could cut this from. So I'm going to have to be very careful with my cuts. The first measure I'm going to need is the one that goes from the bottom of the rear leg to the top of the outside of the back. So that is 44 centimetres for the base of the chair, from the height of the leg to the seat. Then the 69 centimetres, nice, up to the top of the rest on that side. It peaks in the middle, but we don't want the peak in the middle, we want the peak at the outside. Which gives us 113 centimetre distance. It's important to remember that the legs of the chair are going to have some thickness to them. So I'm going to allow 2.5 centimetres either side of the line that's been drawn, so that once I put the chair together, adding some support, I've got some play around that, 5 centimetres of play in order to create the chair leg. 5 centimetres is probably a little bit large. I probably want more akin to 4 centimetres, but it's better to have too much and cut down than have not enough. So I'm going to have 2.5 centimetres either side of the line that's been drawn, just to make sure. I'm going to initially cut it out. I'm going to go even further than that, probably cut about 3 centimetres away from the line, just so I know I've got room to play with. That's taped down. Just try and shorten it on again. And there we have it. Two parts of a chair. But they're not going to stay like this as two sides, they're going to cross. I'm going to need to cut one of these from the bottom up, halfway through the cardboard, with the width of the gap being equal to the width of the cardboard. And the opposite on the other one, but from the same on the other one, but from the top rather than the bottom. So I need to make sure that the cuts on here are the same depth. It's vitally important, because if they're not the same depth, then they're not going to sit level on top and you're going to have wonky seams. So the way I'm going to make sure that they're the same level, even if I haven't measured that correctly, is to use this as a guide to cutting this by sliding them in together and then measuring. At this point you might be tempted to say, you know, I want to stick these two parts together, but resist that urge, because everything else on it is still wobbly, so it's going to be difficult to manoeuvre them without, you know, things flopping all over the place. And this area are going to be rather flimsy now because you've cut some of the cardboard out. So the best thing to do is work on the rest of the chair first, so that all the limbs are going to be roughly strengthened, and then once they're all strengthened and things can sort of hold themselves, then start slotting things, the two halves of the chair together. The next part of the project is to strengthen the limbs, which means I need to go back to this cardboard and draw out the dimensions exactly the same as the limbs of the chair we already have. And when you want a straight line, trick is hook your tape measure across the top and then let the tape measure bounce, and you'll get gravity to pull it down straight. And you've got a straight line, basically using your tape measure like a plumb bob. There we have it. Having the cross beam on there makes that whole leg much more stable. supports for the front legs are done, we can use the front legs as a base to copy and transfer to the back legs because we're doing them in 2 halves. So take one of the guides. We're doing it this way because I don't know that the top of the cardboard is perfectly straight. I have to make sure that I've lined up the top of the chair leg with the top of the cardboard here and just let it angle going down, and that way I know that once I've cut it out, as long as I've put the straight lines out straight enough, this top edge will be straight. So what you'll notice now is that now that I've reinforced the legs and back, it's a lot more stable, but it's still a bit wobbly and not secure, so it's going to take some more reinforcements. Now, especially around this area that's very thin, very wobbly, so that's going to have to take a lot, at the pinnacle of the arch I'm talking about, that's going to take a lot of reinforcements. The main area I'm concerned with at the moment though is this that I'm wobbling, where the 2 joins go, because it's got no support that way, and forward and backwards, that is going to be the area of the lower back where if I lean back on the chair, it's going to put most stress down there. So that bit needs to be most secure. It wouldn't have been so much of an issue if I would have done it in 1 long strip, but because I've got it in 2, it means that I'm effectively only using 1 strip of cardboard there. So the solution to that is going to be to bridge it with another piece of cardboard. This is the bit I need to bridge. Then all I'm going to do is take a bit of scrap cardboard. Doesn't really matter too much about the size, I can always trim it down. It needs a little bit taken off if anything. And what I'm going to do is use wood glue, which is basically PVA, to cover both sides, and then I'm going to use my tiny clamps to clamp it into place. Now you don't want to use clamps all over this piece because a good clamp will crush the cardboard, and the internal structure, which you can see is already a bit mashed around here, but this internal structure will get crushed, and that's going to lessen the strength of the cardboard. So what we need to do is just use the clamps for this small area where there's only going to be a small amount of overlap. And I'm going to do that for both sides, this side and the opposing side. And this should be one of the very few areas I actually use this technique for. I have another method for attaching the pieces of cardboard to each other without using the mechanical interlocking system, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And just apply a small amount of wood glue to either side, and it's always a good idea when you're using wood glue to spread it out, make it thin so it's not a big blob. You see what I mean? The cardboard gets crushed by these, which is not what we want, but because it's only just for this area, and this is just to keep these 2 pieces connected, essentially forming them back into 1 piece of cardboard. The rest of it will be reinforced more securely. So I've given the glue some time to dry. It's been about an hour, which means it won't be fully dry, but it'll be dry enough. And there is a moment of truth. Going to attach the two sides together, which is going to be tricky with only one pair of hands. There we are. That's the core structure. Everything's wobbly and still trying to fall over, but the legs themselves are fairly rigid. What I need to do now is stop this twisting, which will mean I need to create a triangle section for the seat that will stick to the sides of the arch. If I have 4 of them, then you won't be able to twist this way because it'll be pushing into one of the triangles. Won't be able to twist that way because it'll be pushing into another one. Guys, disaster has struck. Whilst trying to measure the twisting, I think it's because largely in the transport of what it contained, the paper was taken off part of the inside, which meant that there was less resistance to twisting and it snapped. Which means I'm going to have to try and figure a way. Either I need to recut out this entire section, which I've only got one more piece of card really that could do that, or I've got to figure out a way of attaching this, and I think I'm going to try and repair it, because anyone making this at home who's trying to follow along might come up with something similar and not have the cards replaced. So my plan for repair is to basically remove a section that's the same height as the difference between the bottom of the cut and the top of the seat. It saves the little pieces you cut off, because that can be used to help measure the piece we replace it with. And do the same on this side. I can use any piece of card to make sure I keep the right measurement between them. If I need a piece of card that wide, I'm going to use a technique which is going to use a combination of wood glue and PVA glue in order to try and make a secure hold. So I'm going to cut a section out, it's going to match. I'll use it. And now I'm going to use a combination of glues, because the wood glue is incredibly strong and it's going to create a firm bond. But in order for it to make a good bond, you really need to hold it down in place. It doesn't dry quickly enough and I can't really clamp it. So what I'm going to do is use the glue across there, but then use hot glue, which is going to dry much quicker, to just press into place. So the hot glue will form an initial bond and hold it steady. The wood glue will hold it more firmly as it dries more slowly. Okay, so the hot glue is under there. I'm just going to hold it steady while the hot glue dries slightly. Once the hot glue's dried, it will hold the whole thing in place whilst the wood glue dries and forms a stronger bond. Okay, so this is a section that's roughly the size of the seat. And what I'm planning on doing is cutting out strips in a cross, diagonally across to the corners, that are the same width as the cardboard, and then that will create the 4 triangles that will sit in between the arches that will provide support and stop it from twisting, so that it hopefully won't tear like that again. Ladies and gentlemen of All Variations Thereupon, this is the hardest project I've ever undertaken. You see, I've had hardly any sleep last night because I was trying desperately to think the best way I can construct this. I don't know it can be done. I'm fairly confident I can get something usable from this. But it's a very hard task. I was up last night thinking how best to reinforce the weakest points, how best to construct it so it's going to maintain itself for long-term use. So yesterday, I didn't film anything. Partly because I was thinking what to do, but mostly because the reinforcements I'm going to put in it are small and fiddly. And they've taken a bloody long time to cut out. In order to maintain the rigidity of the structure, I need to reinforce it in all three relevant dimensions. It needs to be vertically secure, it needs to be horizontally secure, and it needs to not twist. And the easiest way to do that is to mimic nature, to create a honeycomb structure within the body of the throne, much like the bones of a bird or a dinosaur, or dare I say, a dragon. In order to do that with the primary structure we've already got, which is based on a cross of all the different parts of the throne, I'm going to have to insert small, essentially biscuits, is a woodworking term, in order to create a horizontal support to try and resist the twisting and provide sort of a side-to-side rigidity to it. Now, to do that, I've had to cut out 5 cm by 5 cm squares and then divide those squares into triangles, cutting out just enough to accommodate the thickness of the card. I didn't film any of this because it would have been tedious to both film and watch. Because not only have I created a lot of scrap card, I've created a tub's worth of little triangles to stick into the structure of the chair, and a second tub, and more that I've just dropped on the floor picking this up. Almost ready to attempt to join together, actually properly join. One thing I've got to do first is make sure that when I join them together, they're not going to twist around each other, which is what caused it to tear last time. And to do that, as I have done with the supports along the legs and back, I've cut out triangles from what I measured the seat measurement to roughly be. And as you can see, the triangles come in two different varieties. You've got the smaller triangles and the larger ones. These ones are the side of the seat, and the smaller ones are the front and back. The reason being that chairs tend to be deeper than they are wide, unless you happen to have a large bottom, in which case you might want one that's more square. But it's got a rectangular sort of base. As you can see, we have it out like that. And so, as these two cross over each other, I'm going to have these already glued into place, so that when I slot them in, I can glue the other end in and use that to rigidly hold the seat, stop it twisting. I'm going to apply the wood glue to the triangle along the edge I'm going to attach to the chair. Just that down, rub it in. And then I'm going to use the hot glue. I'm going to hold that in place just long enough for the hot glue to bite. The wood glue is not going to dry, but if the hot glue has dried enough, it may hold that securely. And that's unbalanced now, so he's going to try and tip forward. So I need to angle it. I have to admit, this part I'm slightly nervous about. I really just want to get these two halves together so that they're more stable and they don't have a heart attack every time one of them falls. Putting them together is just as nerve-wracking. I don't want them to tear it. I apologise in advance if I don't get a good angle on it, but I'm only going to attempt this once. Cardboard chair on my head for strangers on the internet. Are you proud of me yet, Mum? Let me explain what just happened. As you probably saw if I've left it in, I tried balancing the back of the chair in place using my head whilst I'm going to put the other one in position. It then fell over. One of the legs is twisted around 360 degrees. And currently my sleeve is in with glue. This has been a nightmare. While I was trimming up these triangles, I've noticed a mistake that I've made. See, within the cardboard, there's a series of channels that support it, and they all run in one direction. And as you'll notice, they all seem to run in the same direction on here, because I've cut this out of one solid piece of cardboard. If you're following along and you want to avoid this mistake, what you need to do is use two different pieces of cardboard and ensure these channels don't go in the same direction. So the way I cut it, they do go in the same direction, and the result of that is it's fairly strong if I push down in this direction here along this side, but on this side and this side it's very flimsy. So I'm going to have to, in order to rectify that, place some horizontal supports along it, just to try and stop it from bending. But if you wanted to avoid that in the first place, then you'd cut these two sections out of a separate piece of card and have the supports running in that direction. So I'm wearing out a card, so what I've done is I've created, instead of an arch, buttress. The advantage of this is I don't need so large a piece as to be able to span the whole thing. I can cut these small sections out individually, and that'll save me some of the larger pieces that I've got left to do the actual facing, because there's a lot of card that I'm going to need in order to face this and make it look neat, because at the minute as a skeletal structure it looks a bit messy. So buttressing for the side won't span across the whole thing, but this direction is most stable anyway. So that's the plan going forward. Allow me to introduce you to the underside of the chair. All the ribbing in the cardboard itself runs in this direction. So I've primarily put pieces of card that go horizontally across. Where the arch was thinnest, which is here, I've doubled up on the cardboard, so there's 2 layers, whereas in other areas where it's slightly thicker I've only put the one. And around the very centre I've placed extra blocks of card just to reinforce that bit, because where the cuts are to interlock them, it's effectively half the thickness again. So these pieces of card are just to help reinforce the thickness of that centre point, so it's not going to move around so much. Some of the pieces have slipped a bit as they've dried, but it looks to be holding okay. And these pieces are all wedged in so tight there is no need for hot glue. It's just wood glue holding them on. And here is the semi-finished project. It's Fitting itself, a throne made entirely out of cardboard, only it's not quite so much a throne yet as more of a chair. As yet it's not quite complete. The arms still need to be attached, but I'm not going to attach them yet because the thing that's going to make it a dragon throne more than anything else is going to be the addition of dragon skulls, which I want to sit on the arms. And because I haven't got a good design for the dragon skulls yet, I don't want to attach the arms yet and have the arms dictate the design of the skulls. I'd rather the skulls dictate the arms. So the arms haven't been added, and that's going to be done in the next video. So if you want to see the continuation of this project, be sure to like and subscribe and all the things that YouTubers normally say. Something to do with adding comments, I don't know. As a chair, this actually does function, provided I sit only on the front part of it. The reason being that the depth of this chair, as you can probably see, is quite a lot. And as a result, the arches tend not to support the entire weight over the distance that they span. If you wanted to get around this, if you're following along yourself, it's easier just to, you could probably reduce the depth of the seat by about a third and you'd be fine. There's nothing wrong with the implementation of buttresses for the side structure. That all works perfectly fine. The only issue is the distance it's spanning. Hopefully I'll be able to correct this. It might need another face in there, thicken it out with some more cardboard. Or it could be a case of when I face it in the final stages, in order to make it look like wood, I might put wood veneer over it, and that might actually just be enough in order to stop it from tearing. Because what's happening is, as you put your weight in the middle, the arches are pushing the legs out, and that's causing a tear at the top of the arches. So maybe just wood veneer over the top might be enough. I'll probably put more reinforcements in than that, but that's it for now. In terms of difficulty, this was one of the hardest projects I've ever had to do. It's going to be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Not only in its tediousness, but also in just the complexity of constantly sitting around thinking, how am I going to get this to work? How am I going to distribute the weight evenly? Although, speaking of the tediousness, you know all those little cardboard triangles I cut out in order to make the honeycomb structure of the inside? That seems to have worked perfectly. I put as much weight as I want on this and it doesn't give way. So in honour of this project, can we refer to that technique as dragon boning or barding? To use a D&D joke that's completely overused. In terms of cost, however, the main cost is going to be your labour and glue. As you probably saw, I used up one of the small bottles of wood glue, and I used more glue sticks than I could count. I lost count at about 17, 18, somewhere around there. In all, I think I probably used about 30 glue sticks in order to try and get all this together. Overall, I'm very happy with this project. We've got 2 more parts to it, adding the dragon skulls and the arms, and the final finishing of trying to make a bit of a comfy seat to it. And after that, I don't think anybody else has ever made a dragon throne out of cardboard, so this could be considered the world's first, maybe. Anyway, till then, I'll see you next time. Right, let me explain what just happened. As you probably saw if I've left it in, I tried balancing the back of the chair in place using my head whilst I'm going to put the other one in position. It then fell over. One of the legs is twisted around 360 degrees. And currently my sleeve is in with glue.